Have you ever felt exhausted before the day even began? Looked at a to-do list and even with time to spare, just froze? And then came that voice in your head. You're lazy. Or worse, someone actually said it out loud and you believed it. But what if I told you that this isn't laziness? It's not a lack of willpower. What if behind this pattern you've lived with for years, there's something else at play? Something neurological. A condition called ADHD. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is far more than just hyperactive kids in classrooms. It's a different way the brain works. A different rhythm of thought, focus, and emotional regulation. And when no one recognizes that rhythm, it's easy for the world, and even yourself, to mislabel it as irresponsibility, distraction, disorganization, or the harshest label of all, laziness. That's why in this video we're going beyond the generic symptoms. We're diving into 5 deep, often misunderstood signs of ADHD. Signs that may have shaped your life without you even knowing it. And most importantly, we're here to help you realize nothing about this makes you broken. There's a reason why everything feels the way it does. You're not alone. You're not lazy. You're not too much. Or not enough. You just haven't had the right explanation yet. Before we dive in, a quick reminder. This video is not a diagnosis. It's not a substitute for speaking with a mental health professional. But it may just be the start of you finally seeing yourself clearly and letting go of the shame that never belonged to you. So take a deep breath. This might be the moment everything starts to make sense. For many adults who are later diagnosed with ADHD, the signs were there all along, hidden in plain sight during childhood. But no one noticed. Or worse, they noticed and dismissed them. You might have been the kid who constantly stared out the window. The one who never finished homework, even though you were bright. Maybe you were always interrupting, climbing on furniture, or talking too much in class. Or maybe you were quiet, lost in your own world, always daydreaming, misunderstood as shy or lazy. The truth is, ADHD rarely shows up as the cartoon version we've been taught. Bouncing off the walls, unable to sit still. Especially in girls, ADHD can be internal, subtle, and easily missed. And even when it's obvious, it's often mislabeled, undisciplined, disrespectful, difficult. So instead of support, you got scolded. Instead of diagnosis, you got shame. By the time we become adults, that shame becomes a second skin. We think we're flawed. We try harder. We beat ourselves up. We mask the symptoms. We push through the exhaustion, the chaos, the frustration, all while wondering, why is this so easy for everyone else? But the answer might be that your brain was wired differently from the very start. And it's not your fault that no one saw it. ADHD in childhood doesn't always look the way society expects it to. And the cost of that misunderstanding is carried into adulthood. Recognizing this first sign, that your struggles didn't begin yesterday, is often the start of healing. It's not about rewriting your past. It's about understanding it and forgiving yourself for all the times you were just trying to cope the best you could. And if this feels familiar, if your childhood was a blur of confusion, frustration, or constant correction, keep watching. The signs don't stop there. Here's one of the most misunderstood truths about ADHD. It's not that you can't focus. It's that your focus doesn't show up when or where you need it to. You might sit down to do something important, work, studying, paying bills, and within seconds, your brain drifts. You reread the same sentence 3 times. You check your phone without realizing it. You get up to grab water and forget what you were doing. It's frustrating. It feels like your mind is constantly slipping through your fingers. But then, there's the flip side. The moments where you lock in. Hours pass and you don't even notice. You forget to eat, to sleep, all because you got completely absorbed in something random. A video game. A craft. Researching something niche for no reason at all. That's not laziness. That's hyperfocus, a lesser-known trait of ADHD. It's what happens when your brain latches onto something that hits just the right stimulation level, and suddenly, it gives you too much focus. The rest of the world disappears. So ADHD isn't about having no focus. It's about having a focus system that's completely out of your control. And this unpredictability can wreak havoc on your life. One moment, you're overwhelmed by small tasks. The next, you're buried in a rabbit hole of distraction you didn't choose. This inconsistency leads to guilt. Why can I spend 4 hours organizing playlists, but not 10 minutes answering emails? Why do I zone out during meetings, but stay up all night working on a side project? The answer lies in how the ADHD brain handles motivation, stimulation, and executive function. It's not about priorities. It's about what stimulates the brain enough to light it up. And unless you know that, you'll keep blaming yourself for being unmotivated, when the truth is, your brain isn't wired for typical motivation. It's wired for interest, for urgency, for novelty. Understanding this is a game changer. It gives you permission to stop beating yourself up for being inconsistent and start building systems that actually work for the way your mind operates. Let's be honest. You have great ideas. You get inspired. You start new projects, routines, hobbies, workout plans, planners, passion projects with genuine excitement. But then, days, sometimes hours later, it's gone. That same project sits unfinished. That energy fizzled out. And instead of pride, you're left with guilt. Another thing you didn't finish. Another reason to feel like a failure. Sound familiar? This pattern is one of the most painful and personal signs of ADHD. Not because you're incapable of finishing, but because your motivation isn't consistent. The ADHD brain struggles with something called executive dysfunction, which affects your ability to plan, prioritize, and see tasks through to completion. You know the dishes need to be done. You want to respond to that message. You meant to make that phone call days ago. But every time you try, it feels like pushing through molasses. Your body freezes. Your mind avoids. And the longer you wait, the heavier it gets. This isn't laziness. This is paralysis. And it's not for lack of effort. In fact, most people with ADHD are trying so hard all the time, but no one sees that invisible effort. They just see the laundry you forgot in the washer, the assignments turned in late, the potential you're wasting. That invisible gap between how much you're trying and how much actually gets done becomes a source of deep shame. And worse, it can make you stop trying altogether. Why bother if I'm just going to fail again? But here's what you need to know. You're not failing. You're using strategies that were never made for your brain. People with ADHD often thrive when tasks are urgent, exciting, or external, things with immediate feedback or accountability. But the moment something becomes routine or loses novelty, your brain drops it like a hot potato. Once you understand this, you can begin to build systems around activation, not willpower. Because it's not about forcing yourself to just finish. It's about working with your brain instead of constantly fighting it. Imagine this. You're walking through a store, knowing full well you're on a tight budget, and suddenly you buy something totally unnecessary. Or you're in a conversation and before you realize it, you've interrupted again. Maybe you say something you instantly regret. or make a spontaneous decision that leaves you wondering, why did I just do that? This is more than bad habits or a lack of discipline. It's called impulse control. And for many people with ADHD, it's one of the most disruptive, newer, and misunderstood symptoms. Impulse control is the ability to pause before reacting, to consider consequences before taking action. But for the ADHD brain, that pause often doesn't exist. It's not that you don't care. It's not that you're reckless. It's that your brain's ability to hit the brakes is delayed, or sometimes absent. You might find yourself overspending, blurting out thoughts at the wrong time, jumping between jobs, switching plans last minute, starting new diets or routines on a whim, and then abandoning them just as quickly. Sometimes the impulse is harmless. Sometimes it hurts relationships, finances, or your self-esteem. And the worst part? You don't always know why you do it. There's no master plan. Just a moment of action followed by a wave of regret. People might call it immaturity. They might say, you never think things through. But what they don't see is the internal battle. The dozens of impulses you did resist. The ones you fought off silently. They only see the ones that slipped through. And it's exhausting, isn't it? Constantly having to apologize, explain, or make up for something you never intended. It makes you feel out of control, like you can't trust yourself. But here's the truth. ADHD affects the parts of the brain responsible for inhibition, decision-making, and self-regulation. It's not a moral failing. It's a neurological difference. With the right tools, therapy, medication, mindfulness practices, and external structure, you can create space between impulse and action. You can train your brain to pause. You can rebuild trust in yourself. And that changes everything. Let's talk about something that hits especially hard for people with ADHD, the constant, never-ending struggle to stay organized. You've tried everything: planners, calendars, bullet journals, apps, sticky notes. You've watched productivity YouTubers, downloaded habit trackers, color-coded your closet, and still, chaos finds its way back into your life like an old friend who never left. Deadlines sneak up on you. You miss appointments even though you swear you set a reminder. Your email inbox? Unread chaos. Your room? Half clean, half messy. Perpetually in progress. You keep meaning to get your life together. But no matter how much effort you put in, it never sticks. Here's why. ADHD isn't about being lazy or disorganized on purpose. It's about how your brain struggles with executive functions. The mental skills that help you plan, prioritize, initiate tasks, and follow through. Organization requires all of those skills working in harmony. And for someone with ADHD, that harmony is hard to come by. Your brain might see everything as equally urgent, or nothing as urgent at all. You may underestimate how long tasks will take, or you might forget steps entirely. What looks like forgetfulness is often your brain dropping non-stimulating tasks before you can even notice. And it's not just physical clutter. It's mental clutter. Your thoughts feel like tabs on a browser. Dozens open at once, all playing music. The worst part? You blame yourself. Every time a system fails, you think, I just need to try harder. But what if trying harder isn't the answer? What if the system wasn't built for your brain in the first place? Some strategies that work better for neurotypical brains, like monthly planners or long task lists, might not work for you. Instead, ADHD-friendly tools often rely on external cues, visual timers, short sprints, alarms, body doubling, or gamification. There is hope. And there are methods that do work. Once you stop shaming yourself and start adapting to how your mind truly works. Because the problem was never you. It was using someone else's map to navigate your brain. If you've made it this far, take a moment. Breathe. Because what you just heard isn't just a list of signs. It might be a mirror. Maybe for the first time, the chaos in your mind feels less random. Maybe you're realizing it was never about being lazy, flaky, or a mess. It was always ADHD, quietly shaping how you think, feel, and move through the world. And listen, this isn't about putting a label on you. It's about finally taking off the wrong ones. You spent years calling yourself disorganized, unmotivated, irresponsible. But those were never your truths. They were symptoms misunderstood. And now, you get to rewrite that narrative. Not alone, not in silence, but with support, information, and compassion. Yes, ADHD is real. Yes, it can be challenging, but it's also manageable, treatable, understandable, and you, exactly as you are worthy of that understanding. You're not broken, you're just wired differently. And when you finally understand how your brain works, you don't just cope. You heal. You grow. You thrive. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below telling us, what's one thing you used to blame yourself for that now makes a little more sense? Your story might be the one that helps someone else feel seen for the first time. And if this video resonated with you, if you want to keep learning, growing, and feeling a little less alone, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. This space was made for minds like yours. You're not just watching content anymore. You're becoming the architect. Let's go.